Hey folks, Brian back again with more tools, tips, and information on how you can optimize for outcomes in your business. This week we're going to talk about another tool. The tool this week is the Swimlane diagram. This is a tool I've used a lot in my corporate career and have used it with a number of different businesses as well, just to better help them understand how their processes are working and where they have challenges they can improve. And with that, let's go ahead and get started. Okay, so the purpose of a Swimlane diagram is to document a process. And it's done a little bit differently than some of the other documentation that I've covered in the past. A swim lane diagram gets its name from its appearance. It looks like swim lanes like you would see in a swimming pool. So you've got a number of these lanes that go usually from left to right, and each one of those lanes represents a person or technology and application that exists within a process. And the swim lane diagram, it's a lot more powerful than a narrative. A process narrative is when you just write out the steps using words. Step 1 is X, step 2 is Y, and so on. A swim lane diagram gives you a better visual representation of what's actually happening in the process. It takes more time, but it allows you to see a lot more and gain a lot of information that you can't really see or understand when you're just looking at a process narrative. And that swim lane diagram is going to show you the complete process from start to finish and everything that happens in the middle. So let's talk about the benefits. If you, as a business, were to take the time to draw a swim lane diagram of one of your processes, there are some unique benefits that you get that you don't really get from some of the other tools. First, it's going to give you a good indication of how each of the different players or technology within a process relate to each other. You're going to get to see when things move from one person or tech to the next, and that gives you a lot of good insights. So think back to our fundamentals of systems thinking. A system is how you get something done. It has process steps, and each process step has inputs and outputs. So when we talk about a swim lane diagram, it's really understanding what are those process steps, and each one of those steps is going to have inputs and outputs. Now, when you have handoffs between the different players in a process, usually what they're doing is they're taking an output from the step that they just completed, and they're handing that off to the next person or software in line. And that thing that they're handing off is an input. So with those handoffs that occur, here are some common problems that you might see. You're going to have inputs that are wrong. Either they're defective or they're missing things. You're going to have inputs that are late. So the person or application doing the receiving is sitting around waiting, and the input that they're waiting for just hasn't come yet. You might have a situation where the person or system doing the receiving isn't ready. And so the person that's providing that input, they're pushing it over, and the person that's receiving that next step isn't ready to take it. And that can cause you all kinds of problems as well. Let's take a look at what a swim lane diagram looks like, and that'll help you understand what I'm talking about with these handoffs. So this is a simple example of a restaurant seating customers and what that process might look like for them. So you'll see our swim lanes here. We've got customer at the very top. Next in line, we've got the greeter. Next in line, we've got the server. And then we've got the seating software. So this is an application that helps the restaurant manage the different zones and which seats have people at them currently and all that kind of stuff. So they've got a little bit of technology in this process as well. When I say server, I'm not talking about technology there. I am talking about the person that is waiting their table, bringing them their food and making sure that they're taken care of. So we've got 3 different people and then an application at the bottom that serves as the technology that facilitates this process. So another thing to note about swim lane diagrams is these shapes actually have meaning. And there are a lot of different shapes that you can use, and a lot of them have meaning associated with them. I will caution you to not get carried away in how you use your shapes. I've seen swim lane diagrams that have 25 different shapes on them, and it becomes really difficult to remember what all these shapes mean, and it really takes away from the power of the diagram when you start to really complicate it with tons of shapes or other ways of trying to classify things. I will say also related to shapes is sometimes people will use them in a non-standard way. In the world of business process improvement, there are standard shapes that always mean the same thing. So make sure that if you're trying to use shapes to add to your swim lane diagram, that you use the appropriate shapes, and any of the applications that you use to do that will give you some help on remembering which is which. You'll see in this diagram, I really only use about 5 or 6 shapes ever. And this diagram, I think, has 4. So you'll see this oval shape here at the start. This is a terminator. So this means either your process is starting or your process is ending. So you see in the upper left, I always have the beginning oval shape, which is where the process starts. And then you'll see somewhere in the bottom right, sometimes it ends up in the top if this top row has the final step, but somewhere on the right, you will see another oval, which represents the end of the process. All of the steps are rectangles. So anytime somebody or something is doing something, you see that represented by a rectangle. You'll see the diamond shape here represents a decision that needs to be made. So out of a decision, you will always have 2 or more different ways that the process could go. So you see this here, is a seat available? If no, go this way. If yes, go this way. You see another diamond over here on the right. If no, go this way. If yes, go this other way. So that's the diamond. The 4th shape that I used in this one is this thing. I don't even know what that shape actually is, but it's a straight line on the right hand side with a kind of like a half circle around to the right there. This represents a delay or a wait. And I like to use a separate shape to call those out because that's always opportunity to look for making efficiency improvements. Where are we delayed? Where are we sitting around just waiting for something? In this case, it's a valid wait. We're just waiting to give it a few minutes before we try to look for seats again. But always call out your delays or your waits with that separate shape. Another one I use a lot is the cylinder. The cylinder is used to represent a data store, some kind of database. So if you've got a drawing that has a lot of applications in it, you might represent data somewhere and have that cylinder as a data store to show you this is where the data is coming from. That's really it. I don't use, they have all different kinds of shapes. They get used for all different kinds of things. I think that it starts to get really confusing, especially to people that aren't data nerds. If you're not a process nerd, remembering 30 different shapes and all their individual meanings, it's just too much. So try and keep it simple with the shapes. Don't get too carried away. For sure, use your start and end points. For sure, use your process steps, and you'll need decisions. You'll need the diamonds for that if you've got any decisions in your process at all. So in the upper left here, you have the start of the process where a customer enters the restaurant. And you can see each of these lines represents movement to the next step in the process. Anytime the arrow crosses over one of these swim lanes, that's a handoff. Okay, when the customer comes in to the restaurant, the greeter needs to pick that up and see that, hey, I just got an input. A customer came in and I need to now do something. So they go to their step, which is to greet the customer. When they greet the customer, they're then going to check for available seats. So you have multiple steps happening in a row here within this same swim lane. And then you can see here's another handoff where the greeter is actually checking the available seats within the software, and the software is then doing some work to see which seats are available. So this is what I mean when I talk about a swim lane diagram is going to help you better illustrate, see, and understand where you have handoffs in your processes. And again, that becomes really important because those handoffs are where you have so many problems in a process. Now, another benefit to swim lane diagrams is they help you see where you have possible rework. Rework exists in your business when you have to redo a task. It could be repairing something under warranty. If you've got physical products, it could be going through and reteaching or spending extra time clarifying concepts that you've already taught. That would be considered rework. Anytime you've got to redo something that you've already done, that's considered rework, and it is a waste. There's never any good time to do rework. Under perfect circumstances, your business would never have it. It just doesn't add any value, but it does cost you resources, it costs you time, and it costs you person hours that are spent actually redoing a job that's already been done. A swim lane diagram is going to help you identify where in your process you have that going on and where you should look to either improve quality or reduce the time that it takes to rework something. First choice is going to be improve the quality so the rework never happens, or removing the need for that rework. If you can't do that, then you want to look at how you can reduce the amount of time it takes you to rework something so that it is acceptable. So we do have an example of that here in our diagram. So this is the greeter row. And once the greeter brings the customer to their seats, they check the table settings and make sure the silverware is clean. And in some cases, that silverware might not be clean. They go get a new set of silverware, and then the process continues. This part is an example of rework, because somebody should have already cleaned the table. Somebody should have put clean silverware out. And if that's not happening and they have to go and check that and then take the time to fix a problem on work that's already been done, that's a waste of time. That's a waste of your resources. So this gives us an opportunity to look at, why is the silverware dirty? Why do they have to go get new silverware? How often does it happen? This is where you can use the tool that we talked about last week, root cause analysis, and get into the 5 whys and start digging down to figure out, hey, what problems do I have here that require the greeter to need to check the quality of setting the table? Can I fix that somehow? Let me understand, why is the silverware dirty? Ask yourself why a bunch of times, get to that root cause and fix it. So another thing that a swim lane diagram is going to show you is where you have loops in your process. We have one down here with the seating software. We've got this loop happening that it could potentially run over and over again. And that's where we get into problems in the business. You might have a loop in your process that runs forever and ever and doesn't have a way to stop, or never gets an out. And you want to make sure anytime you have a loop, it is valid at times to have loops in your processes. They're not one of those things where it's so bad and terrible you always need to take them out. But you want to make sure that within that loop, at some point, that loop is going to stop. Okay, in this case, it's about seats being available. At some point, a seat will free up, and we know that then this loop will end and our instance of the process will continue forward and the people will get seated. Now, we could potentially add another loop here. When the greeter then goes to find the customers, the customer might have stepped outside, the customer might have gone into the bathroom, and they go out and call the name and say, hey, your table's ready, and nobody shows up. There's probably another loop there where that greeter's going to wait a few minutes and then they're going to try again. Or anytime somebody walks into the lobby, they're going to say, hey, are you this family? Because your table's available now. So that is another example of where there might be a loop. Now imagine not having an out in that loop, and assume that the family came in, they put their name on the wait list, and then they decided they didn't want to wait and they left. If you don't have an out for that loop, that means 7 days later, your greeters are still going to be checking, hey, is this family available? We've got a table open for them. So it's a little bit goofy, but it gets the point across that you have to make sure that your loops have some way that at some point they stop and they don't continue forever, and that you don't have instances of your process running over and over and over again with no way for them to stop, because that will consume resources, and that does limit what it is your resources can do, because they're spending so much time trying to process whatever's happening in that loop. So Swimlane diagrams are going to help you scale your business. From an efficiency perspective, this is one of the greatest tools that you can use to start understanding, what am I doing in my process that's inefficient? Okay, I've seen countless numbers of businesses or teams, just by creating the Swimlane diagram, they start to see stuff that doesn't make sense. They start to see the inefficiencies. You don't even have to do any real hard work other than just draw out what's happening today. What is the order of things? How are things connected? And by doing that, when you see this physical representation in a diagram of here's what we're doing, you will immediately catch things and say, wait, this doesn't make sense. Why are we doing this before that? Or why are we having this person do that thing when this other person should do that thing? You will see them just going through the process of documentation. So it will help you improve the efficiency of your business, which is going to lead to you being able to scale your business faster and cheaper and more successfully. So let me cover the technology then that you can use to facilitate Swimlane diagrams. You have a lot of options out there. I'm going to touch on just a few of them. The big corporate one from our friends at Microsoft is Visio, Microsoft Visio. It is a standard in the corporate space that is used by companies large and small. It's a very powerful tool that allows you to do all kinds of diagramming, not just of Swimlane diagrams, but other things as well. That's one of the most popular. Just like everything else that Microsoft makes, Google also has an application that competes with that, Google Drawings. And you can use Google Drawings in a very similar fashion. And again, just like all of the other Google apps, you get use of that, and they don't charge you for the basic use of it. Lucidchart is another one. Lucidchart has a free version. It's fairly limited, but it at least allows you to get in. I actually drew this example diagram in Lucidchart just because it is SaaS based. It's online. You just go to their website and you sign up for an account, and then that allows you to draw. I think you get 3 drawings at no cost. And then if you want more than that, then you have to start paying a monthly fee. Another application that you can use to do this, I would say it's not ideal, but I've done this in a pinch before. It does work. It allows you to create drawings like this and save them and use them in all kinds of ways. And that's Microsoft PowerPoint. So Visio is not included as part of Office, but if you already pay for Office, you will have PowerPoint. And that is another tool that you can use in a pinch to do some basic diagramming of processes. From a people management perspective, this tool is really powerful, especially as your company grows and you get more and more people that are doing different things. This tool is going to allow you to see where teams are handing off to other teams, or within a team where one role is handing work off to another role. That's going to help you understand a lot of the inner dynamics of how you need to build a team successfully, who's actually interacting with whom, and what types of skill sets do your individual people need? What is the work that they're going to be doing? It's going to help inform that for you as well. You will also be able to get some perspective on where people might be struggling with their work. So understanding the process is going to help you understand if someone is struggling, what are the things that they're trying to do? Again, looking at those handoffs, because those handoffs always add complexity, and you have to have a different set of skills doing the work versus handing off to somebody else or handing off to an application. having this diagram is going to help you just better understand the work that's going on. You can then apply the knowledge that you have of your employees that are doing the work, and that'll help you make sense out of problems that you might be seeing in your processes. So that covers swim lane diagrams to start off the week here. I will put this diagram up on the resources site. That's resources.optimizeforoutcomes.com. You can go there and download this as one of the free tools or free resources so you can reference this. And know that I'm here for questions as always. If something wasn't clear or you just have questions about something that I covered today, please reach out to me on your favorite or preferred social media channel, or you can email me at brian@optimizeforoutcomes.com. That'll do it for me today. Thanks, and I will see you online.